What's happening, guys? It's Evan TechSource, and in this video we'll be building a super budget gaming PC that's going to cost less than $500. With this PC, you're able to game comfortably in 1080p around 60 FPS. Now, obviously that depends on what game you're playing and what settings you're using, but we're going to be testing a lot of games and see how this PC can handle those games at the end of this video. So make sure you guys stick around for the benchmarks. Also, guys, there's going to be a build guide on this exact same PC, not only installing all the components together, but also installing Windows and the drivers as well. If the build guide is ready, I'll drop a link down below in case you guys want to pick up the parts and follow along yourself. So for the CPU, we're going with the G4560, and it's going to cost you $60, and this is well known for its performance per dollar. It's a dual-core processor with hyper-threading, so it's going to act as a quad-core in most games. This little guy can pull its own weight if you pair it with a solid graphics card, which you will see later in this video. Speaking of the GPU, we are going with the GeForce GTX 1050 Ti for two reasons. It's good enough to game in 1080p, and it fits under the $500 budget. However, if you guys want a better GPU for more frames, then you can upgrade up to a 1060 6GB card. Anything above that, then you're going to experience CPU bottlenecking. So it's not recommended to go past the 1060 6GB card. For the motherboard, I went with the ASRock B250M. It supports 7th gen CPUs, which means you don't need to flash the BIOS in order for it to work with the G4560. It has 2 DIMM slots, M.2 support, and 6 USB ports in the back, 4 of which are USB 3. It's also a very reliable board based on the reviews from the users, so for around $50, you can't go wrong with this. Now, since the CPU only supports up to 2400 MHz of RAM, I picked up 8 gigs from G.Skill. These are the NT series, and they're going for $66 for 2 sticks. So I looked around for the lowest price out there that was not only 2400 MHz, but also had the best timing out there, and these are the best ones that I could find. For storage, we are starting off with a 1TB hard drive from Seagate for less than $50. Storage is always optional, so if you guys have a slightly higher budget, feel free to throw in an SSD or even an M.2. But to keep the budget under $500, we had to go with a 1TB from Seagate. Now for the case, I was looking around for something that not only looks good, but also keeps us around the $450 budget. And guys, I was very surprised to find this. So this is the Thermaltake Versa H17. This case is going for only $35, and it's a really good looking micro ATX case. It has a brushed aluminum panel with 3 USB ports on the top, one of which is USB 3. It also has a PSU shroud and comes equipped with a 120mm fan in the back. However, the case does support up to 280mm radiator in the front and a 120mm rad in the back, or 2 fans in the front, 1 on the top and 1 on the back as well. The fans could be either 120 or 140, but yeah, you got lots of room in there for additional fans. The only gripe I have with this case is that it does not have a see-through side panel, which honestly doesn't really matter because it is a budget build, and if you guys are on a budget, then you're not going to be spending extra money on RGB lighting or custom cables and stuff like that. So it kind of defeats the purpose of a budget build if you're spending all that extra money. But yeah, it's not really a gripe, but wanted to mention that to you guys. Finally, powering everything is a 500-watt power supply from EVGA, and this is plenty for future upgrades. Let's say you want to upgrade your CPU to an i3 or an i5, maybe get a better GPU or more storage. The 500-watt power supply is going to be plenty to power all of that. By the way, guys, I only spent $170 on the 1050 Ti, which looking back, it looks like it was on sale. But if you guys don't want to spend anything more than that, I'll find a similar price GPU like the Zotac one, for example, which is also $170. Because typically these cards go for around $180, some of them even go for $190. But if you want to stick to a $170 price tag for the GPU, I'll drop a link to that down below. So yeah, guys, these are pretty much all the parts I'm using in the build. I'll drop a link to every single one of these down below if you guys want to check it out. But with that said, let's put it together and see what this thing can do. Alright guys, so now it's time to play some games in 1080p on the PC. I disabled the sound so that you guys can hear me speak, and also you can hear how loud the PC gets in certain games. Right now it's actually very silent. And the first game we're going to be playing is Grand Theft Auto 5. Let me show you guys the settings we're using. So as you guys can see, DirectX 11 is enabled, 1920 by 1080. FXAA, MSAA is off, but everything else is pretty much set to very high or max. So if you scroll down here, everything else is pretty much very high. MSAA reflection is also set to off, as well as post FX is normal, and the anisotropic filtering is off, and also ambient occlusion is set to normal. Tessellation is also off. So those are the settings we're using in GTA 5. Driving around outside, we're getting good amount over 60 FPS average. It does dip a little bit under 60 FPS in certain areas, but for the most part, you're getting anywhere from 60 to even 80 actually. So it kind of just fluctuates depending on what you're doing in the game. Also, you guys can look at the stats on the top left of the screen. The top portion is the GPU. It starts off with the GPU temperature, then it goes to the GPU percentage being used, and then the GPU clock speed, which is 1848 megahertz. Underneath that is the memory clock. Underneath that is the CPU temperature over here, 54 degrees. I'm about to crash into something right now. The percentage of the CPU being used, so we're about 85%, 90% CPU usage, and that is the CPU clock. We're at 3.5 gigahertz. Underneath that is RAM. That's how much RAM is being used to play the game. We're currently around 6 gigabytes, I would say. And then underneath that, of course, is the FPS count, just so you guys know what you're looking at across the next games. But yeah, on GTA 5, you guys can expect anywhere from 60 to 90 FPS. Obviously, depends on what you're doing, what area you are in the game, and stuff like that. If there's more action going on, you're going to be getting anywhere in the low 60s. And then if there's pretty much nothing else going around, you're going to get high 70s and low 80s. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much GTA 5. Let's move on to the next game. All right, guys, the next game we're playing is Black Ops 4. So the settings we're looking at, 1920 by 1080. The render resolution is set to 100. And everything else is pretty much set to medium across the board. There are some settings set to off, like screen space reflection, as well as the special effects shadows and other stuff. So indoors looks like we're getting anywhere from 70 to even the mid 80s. Not bad. Very smooth gameplay, no stutter whatsoever. So during gunfights, obviously the frames dip a little bit, but nothing too crazy. You're still getting well over 60 FPS indoors. Let me actually go outside and see how the frames differ. So outside, not much of a difference really. You're still getting, wow, even in the 80s, that is not bad. I can probably even increase the render resolution a little more just so the game looks sharper, and I can still hit over 60 FPS. But the fact that it's not stuttering or lagging is very impressive on Black Ops 4. CPU usage is at around 90%, and we're still at 3.5 gigahertz. There's 5.5 gigs of RAM being utilized for the game. So looks like our 8 gigs of RAM is still plenty for Black Ops 4. But yeah, guys, a very smooth gameplay. Very happy with the numbers for Black Ops 4. Moving on to the next game. All right, so next game we're playing is Fortnite. Here are the settings we are using, 1920 by 1080, and the settings are set to high across the board. We do have motion blur set to on, VSync off, and yeah, this is pretty much what the settings we're going to be using. Also notice that the GPU is at 99%, almost 100% load, and the PC still remains very quiet. So that's pretty cool. All right, so we're on the ground. We're getting around 70 FPS. As soon as you start to see more people, it will kind of dip a little bit. I think the lowest I've seen it dip to is like 62 FPS so far. All right, next game is Overwatch. Over here, we're playing 1920 by 1080, and we are set to high settings. As you guys can see, preset is set to high. We're getting around 100 FPS during action. Ooh, see this guy. Nice. Not that bad. I think I'm better in Overwatch than I am in Fortnite. So yeah, we're getting minimum 100 FPS. Oh, nice. And it goes up to 120, 130. Not bad. Very fluid gameplay though, guys. No lagging, no stuttering. I'm very happy with the FPS on Overwatch. GPU is also at 98%, CPU around 86%, 90%, and still remains very quiet, guys. This is actually a very silent build as well. And that's Overwatch, guys. You're getting well over 100 FPS. Moving on to the next game. All right, next game is the popular CSGO. We are playing 1080p, maxed out settings, as you guys can see. Everything is either set to high or very high, whatever the highest setting is per category. FPS wise, I mean, obviously this is a less demanding game, so you're going to be getting well over 100 FPS. So anywhere from, I would say, I don't know, 120 to even 200 FPS in CSGO. Even if you have a potato PC, I feel like CSGO will run buttery smooth regardless. Oh my, are you kidding me? So RAM usage is around 5 gigs, as you guys can see. CPU usage around 76% CPU usage and around 75% GPU usage. Temps are really low. Again, the PC is really quiet. This is a really nice build. I'm very impressed, actually. I thought the CPU fan would amp up and it'll be really loud, but surprisingly, it's a very quiet build. So these bots have like titanium armor on their faces or something. But yeah, not much else to see really, guys. Over 100 FPS, very smooth gameplay, no stuttering. You can play CSGO competitively on this PC without a doubt. All right, moving on to the next game. All right, guys, next up is PUBG. We are playing squads. Settings we are using right now is 1920 by 1080. Everything else is set to medium across the board. So once again, guys, this game is poorly optimized, so don't expect any crazy frames. The frames are fluctuating, getting anywhere from 50 to 70, it looks like. But I'm getting constantly above 60 FPS. That's not bad. This game is definitely playable in medium settings. Once we're outside, it dips down to the low 60s. Or mid 60s, I guess. Not bad. But guys, check out how quiet the PC still is. I've been playing, I think, for at least an hour now across multiple games, and this thing is still super silent. You gotta admit, that's pretty impressive for a budget PC, a $450 budget PC. Look at that, smooth gameplay. Let's actually drive this motorcycle, see how it handles rendering the frames. Moment of truth. Wow, look at that. Look how fluid the gameplay is, guys. Not a single stutter. Once you get to a new area and once the map starts loading, you might get some slight micro stutters, as you guys can see, but overall very smooth. No major complaints at all. Not bad, yeah. Medium settings, PUBG, anywhere from 60, 70 FPS, not bad. If you guys want to play in high settings, you might dip down to 50s, maybe even high 40s. But if you guys want a game over 60 FPS, medium settings is the way to go for PUBG. All right, moving on to the next game. All right, next game is going to be the Tom Clancy Ghost Recon Wildlands. For this one, I actually had to lower the settings down to medium, or not even medium, low, to achieve well over 60 FPS. And honestly, guys, even in low settings, this game looks pretty damn good. So low settings will get you in the high 60s, low 70s in Wildlands, so that's actually not bad. I do see the frames dip a little bit towards the low 60s, like I saw it dip to 60, maybe even 61, but consistently it stays, oh Jesus. But consistently we're getting anywhere from the mid 60s to low 70s, so that is not bad. 98% usage for the GPU and 100% usage for the CPU. Wow. Okay, yeah, not bad. Anywhere from 60 to 80 FPS on Ghost Recon Wildlands. So yeah, guys, that is what a $450 gaming PC looks like. I was actually very impressed with the performance. I was expecting around 50 FPS, maybe in medium settings or something, but the fact that this thing can push over 60 FPS and high settings across most of the games that we tested was just unbelievable. The G4560 and the 1050 Ti from EVGA is a solid combo, and I'm very pleased with the performance. And the fact that it was so quiet this entire time, guys, I'm speechless. What can I say? But yeah, guys, if you enjoyed the video and want to see more budget builds on the channel, feel free to toss a like. The holidays are coming up, so I will focus on more budget builds on the channel instead of the high-end builds that I usually do. If you guys didn't like the video, please hit that dislike button and leave me your constructive criticism in the comment section down below. And also let me know what you guys think about this PC.